Good afternoon. My name is Elena Garrick, Executive Director of FuzeHub, and I'd like to welcome all of you joining today's webinar on content marketing for manufacturers. FuzeHub is one of 10 New York Manufacturing Extension Partnership Centers, known as New York MEP, with a mission to help New York State manufacturers grow, innovate, and stay more competitive. Today's presentation stems from our own success in content marketing, and we would like to share our story. As a small organization, the strategies you will hear about today have helped us reach our target markets and expand our outreach and engagement. Today's team, all with expertise in marketing, will take you through several strategies and topics that you will find useful in your own business. Thank you.
All right. Beth, can you go back to the last slide, please? All right, very good. Thanks so much, Elena. That was Elena Garrick, the Executive Director of FuzeHub. My name is Steve Melito. I'm the bald guy with the beard, second from the left. I'm a matching specialist with FuzeHub. Today you'll also hear from Beth Glasanos, who's our marketing manager. She'll give us a FuzeHub case study spotlight. And finally, last but not least, Kim Lloyd, FuzeHub Special Projects, will talk about a very important topic of measuring success. So next slide, please, Beth. Okay, strategies and successes. To start with, let's make sure that we're clear on what content marketing is all about. It's a word that is everywhere. It's a buzzword, so let's make sure we really understand where the value is. It is a way to reach your audience with valuable, actionable, and consistent information. It's things that they want to read, things they want to hear about, things that are going to help them do their job. So with that in mind, once we're clear what content marketing is, let's go on to the core strategies. Next slide, Beth. So as you'll see right here, there are a number of key elements. Every strategy needs to have a number of tactics to make it effective. And so this data is pulled from a research organization called the Content Marketing Institute. And what they've determined is that the average company uses 8 different elements or tactics. So at the very top, you'll see social media content. If you're still not doing social media and you're a manufacturer, keep in mind this is not just something that the kids are doing anymore. 8 out of 10 companies are also using social media. And that same number is true also for blogs. It's not just someone at home in their slippers writing about whatever. These are companies that are using weblogs or blogs to reach their target audience to the tune of about 80%. Then there's email newsletters. Pretty close percentage-wise, perhaps a heavier lift for some companies because in order to do this, you've got to build and maintain an email list. There are lots of tools out there, however, that can make this easier for you. Then there's in-person events, and this is interesting. It's notable because when you do content marketing, you're not throwing out all of the other aspects of your manufacturing program. You're probably changing how you spend. You're probably spending some more time doing things online than you've done before, but there's still a place for in-person events, and you can use content marketing to promote how you go to trade shows, for example. Then there's ebooks and white papers. If you're doing your blog strategy the right way, we can talk about this afterwards. There's a link right here. And then there is video, and you see the percentages start to drop down because video, when it's pre-produced like this, can be expensive and time-consuming. There's also infographics and webinars and webcasts like the one that you're listening to now. So next slide, please, Beth. So why use content marketing? Maybe you're the skeptic, or maybe there's someone else in your organization that's going to ask this question. Could be the CFO, could be the current marketing manager, could be anybody. They want to know why you're going to bother to do this in the first place. If you want to give them some numbers, content marketing costs 62% less than traditional marketing. So as I mentioned before, there's still a place for other marketing activities, but think what happens when you go on the road to a trade show. You got to get an airplane, you got to pay somebody for mileage instead maybe. You've got hotel rooms, you've got meals, you've got all these other incidental costs. And with content marketing, because you can do that right from your office, you get rid of those costs. And so that's a big cost savings for you. Importantly, content marketing is going to yield 8 times more website traffic. If you're talking to a skeptic, they're going to want to know, what's the big deal? It's not about website traffic. It's about sales. It's about dollars. Well, the way that you get the sales in dollars is through leads. There's a sales cycle. So content marketing, compared to other available techniques, generates 3 times as many leads. If you're still talking to someone and they're still skeptical and maybe they're just not going to be convinced by the numbers, then give them some common sense, which is that your sales prospects, people you want to engage, they can't buy from you if they don't know you exist. They've got to be aware of your brand. And then secondly, they've got to see the value in your brand. They can't just know that you sell XYZ. They've got to know what XYZ is going to do for them. Next slide, please. So let's talk about some tips, some things that you can take away and things that you can do after you hear us today. I mentioned blog entries before, and I talked about them in the context of ebooks and case studies. Well, let's back up. Blog entries are something that you should commit to doing on a somewhat regular time frame. It doesn't have to be every week. It doesn't have to be long every week, but you got to treat it like a garden where you're going to take care of it and cultivate it. But it's all about sharing what your audience wants to know. You might be having a company outing, might be very interesting to the people that work for you, but if your blog is facing out into the outside world, it's probably not that interesting to your audience necessarily. They want to know, in terms of your content, what you're going to be able to do for them to make their lives easier. So once you have this content, you don't just wait for people to come and find it. You begin to go ahead and distribute it via social media. And again, there are lots of different social media channels, and there are real applications for them that can help you. You also want to push this strategy. You also want to push your content to the target audience through email. And that's a great way to leverage all that intelligence you're building when you go to trade shows, for example, and you collect those cards, the email addresses. It lets you go out and touch these folks again and let them keep you at top of mind. As I mentioned, blogs and ebooks, if you have a blog strategy that's firing on all cylinders, you're going to have topics that you can later on combine into longer form content like a white paper or ebook. Ideally, you put it behind registration so that when someone new comes along, they've got to give you their email address in exchange for your content, and then you can keep in touch with them afterwards via your email campaigns. Other available things you can do, visual marketing. As you saw earlier, fewer companies do video because it's expensive. There are some tools now that can make it less expensive, a lighter lift for you. And if you need to market to a younger audience, this may be a particularly effective way. And then finally, webinars and podcasts make you look like a leader. If you're still tuned in, there's a reason for it. And you can do the same thing with your own sales strategy and marketing strategy. Next slide, please. So you have a lot of social media channels, and if you're like most small to medium manufacturers, you just don't have enough time. You probably don't even have a full-time marketing person on staff. You may have a thing where this is just lumped in with someone else's job. So let's talk about what other people are doing, and you can see if this makes sense for you. If you look at the average number of social media channels used, it's 6. The biggie is LinkedIn, and there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, people on LinkedIn are who they say that they are. If you connect with a VP of engineering, you're actually talking to someone in the C-suite. You're not talking to a marketing intern. Twitter and Facebook are still very popular. They're not at the level of LinkedIn. And if you have any doubt about Twitter being a way to reach people, think about the current occupant at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Whether you love him or hate him, he uses Twitter very effectively. There's also YouTube. Again, that's going to fit in with your video content. It's a great way not to have to keep all that stuff on your servers, which can sort of bog things down. And then Google Plus and Instagram. The thing about Google to remember is Google is the world's leading search engine. So when you're using Google's social media channel, there's going to be implications for that, as we'll see pretty soon. And then finally, Instagram. In some industries, if you can share visual content, it's extremely powerful. Next slide, please. So social media and SEO, like I mentioned before about Google. Social media is a great way to help build brand awareness. Again, if people don't know you exist, that they don't know that your products exist and that they're helpful and valuable, they're never going to get to the point that they're going to want to buy from you. Search on Google now includes social signals as well. So I know that because I have social media accounts, when I go and I search on things, I see Twitter results and Google Plus and sometimes even LinkedIn. Together, search engine optimization and social are going to make your content discoverable. Okay, you're not just going to write once and some folks are going to come along one time. This is going to be out there hopefully for many years, and so you have an opportunity to build a larger audience. The way that people are going to find you, they're going to find your content, is through keywords. You can think of keywords as a bridge between what you've provided and what people are looking for. Next slide, please. Let's talk about strategy with keywords, because you gotta know where you want to go in order to get there. So the keywords are going to connect their web searches to your content. You have to learn how to think like your searcher, okay? But you want to avoid overdoing it. There was a time on Google and the other search engines where you could use some techniques. You could repeat the keyword an excessive number of times. They called it keyword stuffing. You could do other things like that. Nowadays, you do things like that, you're going to get penalized for it. So you want to use your keywords, but you want to use them intelligently and never overdo it. You can use keywords in social media hashtags. Those are the terms you see after the pound sign and things like tweets. You also want to build your keywords into your blog entries, especially in the headings. And then also in the HTML meta tags, not to get too under the hood, but if you have access to WordPress, there are some great ways to make this easy to do. Next slide, please. So let's take a step back and think about what you just heard. You want to reach audiences who don't want to be sold to anymore. Think about yourself. You get all these calls and emails. You've got too much information coming at you. It's hard to keep up with. You don't want the interruptions. You want things that are going to make your life easier. The same is true for the people that you want to reach. They need to make informed decisions about what to buy, who to work with, and if you can show them that you can solve their problems, then you're going to be able to get their ear. Again, marketers have talked about content marketing so much that this phrase is now a buzzword. It's almost meaningless in some ways, but it shouldn't be. It's not just about sizzle. It's about solutions. It's about a way to actually think about a marketing strategy that is going to work and achieve your objectives. Bottom line, successful content marketers understand their audiences. They're going to inform them. They're going to engage them and sometimes even entertain them. It's not all about sell, sell, sell right away. At some point, of course, you hope you're going to close the deal, but there's a difference between marketing and sales. Content marketing is still marketing, and you have salespeople for a reason. Their job is to close the deal. Next slide. So we're going to talk about some case studies. I am going to talk about one called Specialty Silicone Products. They're a manufacturer in Ballston Spa, New York, small and growing, but they are doing a great job up there. They compete with some companies, can't tell you all their competitors, of course, but these are household names that they compete with, real big guys. And so what does a little SSP do to win? Well, their push is twice a month they publish blog entries. And then they do email campaigns to get that content out there. They also do LinkedIn posts. And then every quarter they'll take their blog content, they'll repurpose it into a white paper. And they'll do the same thing. They'll use social media, they'll use email, they'll get the content out there. So engineers and sourcing managers are their audience, and they're going to perform web searches, and they're going to discover SSP products even long after they've gone on to the next topic, the next challenge. People are still searching, they're still finding the content. And the payoff is that brand awareness that comes by searching and finding starts what I call the buy cycle. Sales, it's their job to engage the leads and close the deals. But in the case of SSP, they have a wonderful opportunity because an engineer for a major aerospace manufacturer, again, it's a household name, found an SSP product, didn't know the company, didn't know the product, but read about it and then reached out, and now this small manufacturer in upstate New York has a great opportunity.
Okay, so getting to the FuzeHub case study, I'm going to dive right into our content marketing strategy and how it has impacted engagement with our audience. I'm going to go over how we got our game plan started, how we began to build our own repertoire, and we're going to take a short look at some of the results of our content marketing. So getting our game plan started, first we wanted to identify our goal, and that was really going through a process of asking questions of ourselves. Why do we want to do content marketing? Well, the end goal for us is we want to offer valuable information to manufacturers by providing them with the information, events, and other engagement opportunities that will solve manufacturing problems. And we want to grow and maintain our audience and their engagement with the tools and resources that we have to offer them. Next, we really wanted to identify assets on our team who would be able to do the work of creating the content marketing. So that's assessing, whether we had the bandwidth to generate content, what staff could contribute possibly to writing articles, what staff might be able to generate ideas to go into the funnel of an editorial calendar, and then are there staff who are going to be able to do some of the promotion that Steve just talked about. Next is identifying what types of content make sense or what made sense for us. And that was really figuring out what kind of platforms we wanted to use to distribute what types of material. So it could be reference materials, it could be how-to guides, it could be topical information of the moment, or more cornerstone content. And lastly, we wanted to identify a plan to promote this information. And we wanted to be consistent, active, and current. And that's really been a key point of our content marketing strategy. By being consistent, we're providing monthly news through our e-marketing, and it really keeps our audience informed of services and programs that we have to offer. And it sets that precedent that they're going to have an expectation of news and information coming their way on a regular basis. And being active is all about active participation on those social media outlets that we've decided to use so that we can really bend to meet our user, our audience, so that no matter what door they're accessing FuzeHub through, they can receive the same information as someone who is accessing us through another door or another social media outlet. And lastly, being current, maintaining an up-to-date web presence is so important to us because it showcases our relevant content, what we do, our current offerings, and we treat it just like it's our physical storefront. But our storefront, we want it to be open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So we make that very clear by staying up to date. Now on this slide, I always like to say there's a different formula for everybody. And when FuzeHub just got kicked off, we began with 3 initial stepping stones that you'll see at the very center of this slide. We began with a little bit of email marketing. We began to have a blog, and we began to do a little bit of social network content marketing. But this has really blossomed and diversified over the last couple of years into other formulas of information that you see all around those first 3 stepping stones. We've done resource reports and industry news and surveys, and these are all ways of doing content marketing and engaging our audience that we've found to be very successful, and they have ultimately really populated the space of our whole content marketing strategy. Now I'm going to share with you some of the content marketing anchors and cornerstones of what we do. Now these are the really core parts of our content marketing strategy that we rely upon. And one of them is resources and white papers. This is our reference material that we want to provide to manufacturers, our go-to resources. And in some cases, this is evergreen material that people can refer back to on an ongoing basis from year to year. And at most, we may have to go in and update it on an annual basis, but it's going to remain relevant forever. And then next, we have guides. These are pieces of content in which we're curating and pulling together information from other sources and making it digestible to our audience. We've provided on our website some guides to funding, guides to exporting, New York State budget highlights that are relevant to manufacturers. We also do just general programmatic overviews of our own services and programs. Next is news. We provide very topical updates, a weekly roundup of manufacturing industry news. We provide a monthly newsletter, and we provide daily social media interaction. And lastly is our unique perspectives. We like to do a lot of unique stories, more human interest stories that tell firsthand experience of manufacturers. One of these series we actually borrowed from another organization in Georgia, and that's called Faces of Manufacturing. So we adopted it for ourselves. We call it Faces of Manufacturing in New York State, in which we profile somebody who has a career in manufacturing and simply provide a profile of what they're doing, their challenges, their successes, and how they've overcome some of those challenges. Our Ask an Expert series is similar. It interviews leading experts from across New York State's innovation ecosystem. It highlights their work and often offers manufacturers an opportunity to engage with them. And lastly, our success stories, which are really just a record of our successful engagement with a manufacturing company. Now on this last slide here, I want to go over some of the results that we've seen over the last couple of years in order to gauge what our impact on content marketing is having. Initially, it was our goal to really move the needle on the engagement with our audience. From 2013 to 2017, you can see our total number of sessions, users, social network referrals, that's traffic coming from those social network accounts that we participate on. They've all been climbing pretty steadily, and we're very happy with the numbers that we've seen. And so we're continuing to work on strengthening our own offerings and strategy, and it is very encouraging to take the time to look at analytics because it can provide some great insight on how your marketing is working, or in some cases it's not working. But generally you'll find that if you are being active, you are going to see an impact and an increase on those numbers. Now Kim is going to dive into a little deeper on this aspect of looking at some of the results with an overview of content analysis.
Thank you, Beth. Appreciate it. What I'm going to talk about is understanding what content analysis can do for you, and then I'll finish with describing steps that you can take to get started right away. Next slide. So what we did was, we've been doing content marketing for a while, and we wanted to make sure that we were identifying what the results of that content marketing efforts were. So we used a tool called SpyFu in order to look at how we were doing. And as a result of this, we came up with a few key takeaways that I wanted to share with you. So organic search accounts for 48% of FuzeHub traffic, which is pretty typical for a website with a lot of content like ours. Organic search means that people are finding your website through search engines by using keywords and doing a generic search and then finding your search results and going to your website. Other sources of traffic are called direct, which means somebody's literally typing in your URL because they know about you already into the address bar. And another another source is social media. So you'll see, or referral traffic. Referral traffic means that someone's backlinking to your website, or they're coming through social media into your website. So having organic search of 48% is pretty good. So that's where we were hyper-focused in our analysis. What we noticed that organic search traffic was better traffic for us because they had a longer average session time than other types of traffic that came to our website. They had a large number of pages than the site average, which means that they looked at more things when they did make it to our site. And they also had what's called a lower bounce rate. A bounce rate means I type in a keyword phrase like lion or something along those lines. And if I was looking for lion, the movie, and I got to a zoo that has lions, I'm going to bounce quickly because I really meant to look for lion, the movie. So a bounce is not good because that means that you are looking for a piece of your intent was different than the search results that Google told you, and then therefore you're going to bounce. So one of your key metrics to look at are how quickly somebody jumps from your page after coming to you from search. So because our bounce rates were lower, average number of sessions, pages per session was lower, and longer average session time was higher, this suggests that our keywords and pointing to different pieces of content on our site are working. Next slide. In this diagram, SpyFu kind of told us where we were in search engine results. So we looked at keyword phrases that were driving traffic to our website and where we were in Google. And you see numbers from 1 down to 93 in this list. And there are other keywords where we're not even on the map. And then it tells you which page it is on your website that it's ranking at 81. So if you look at Innovation Fund and you see it ranked as 81, it's that particular page on our website that's ranked as 81. Search engines don't rank an entire website. They rank a piece of content. So every keyword is ranked towards one landing page or one page on your website. So you may look at 93 and say, wow, that's not a good ranking, but go to the next slide. But if you are ranked in the top 100, that's actually good. That means that you're on the radar of that particular search engine. And if you do a bit of tweaking, you could get from 100 to 90 to 80 to 70. And there are different ways of doing that. And the closer you get to the top 10, the better. So being within 100 is good. So you might tweak some of the pages on your website to go back up. You might optimize them doing some different SEO tactics that Steve had talked about earlier in the presentation, and then push them up in the rankings. We are going to show you in a little bit what some of the things that we thought about doing. So you can also use keywords that are in the top 100 to give you ideas for new blog posts or pages on your website. Tweaking and making sure, look at that page. How does it look? If you were a user going to that page, is the font clear? Is the text clear? Is it good content? Is the heading good? Is there an image there to capture their attention and keep them engaged? Behind the scenes, there's those HTML values, like the HTML title and the HTML meta description, that you want to make sure that those are also optimized for your keyword. And then when you're trying to go after broader keywords, so there's something called short tail and long tail, and I won't go too much into it, but basically for keywords that are broad keywords, like, for example, digital printing. That's a pretty broad keyword, whereas digital printing for my small business is a longer keyword. So both are good. One's harder to get, obviously, the shorter ones than the other, but you can create what we call hub pages or informational pages, or sometimes you'll hear them called guides. On FuzeHub, we call them resource guides, buying guides, They could be called hub pages. They could be called a number of different things, but they're usually not just one article. They're usually pointing you to multiple articles, multiple resources. There's usually some really, really in-depth content on those pages. So that's why they're ranked a little bit higher, just because of how much effort goes into them. One good trick is for you to think about the broad keywords that you want to go after, type them into the search engine, look at that page and say, wow, you know, compare your content against the content that's on the page of the keyword that you're trying to go after, and then determine what that delta is and beef up your content accordingly. Next page. So in WordPress, we use WordPress. WordPress comes with a lot of plugins and other things native to WordPress to help with SEO. So whenever you publish a blog post, you can tag it, and you could, you know, with relevant keywords, and you can also create topic or assign it to category pages. And each tag and category automatically become pages on your website, which is a beautiful thing. And so those are also good SEO food. So in order for you to be able to accomplish the same thing, you need to add tags to your posts. You need to optimize your pages. There's a list of things here that I won't go through, but you can get a copy of the presentation, and there's a lot of information out there on how to optimize each one: titles, your meta description, and other items on your page. Next. At the end of the day, Google ranks pages that help you, help the reader, help the user. If you're just putting up a page and stuffing a bunch of keywords in there, Google's going to know, they're going to slap you on the hand, and they're not going to rank that content. Look at all of your content through the eyes of a user and understand its relevancy and how much impact it has on that particular user's need or intent. Make sure you link to best practice material. Link to other websites. I mean, even if they are competitors, if they've got a really good guide out there, you can go ahead and link to them, because at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're putting yourself and relating yourself to that same domain so that Google understands that you're related to that particular topic. So that's still a good thing. And then make sure that you create topics that manufacturers are interested in. All right, next one. So when doing keyword research, there are tons of tools that out there, some basic, some paid. You know, I always recommend going with the free versions first, get a feel for it, see if you like the kinds of information, because usually they give you a lot of good ideas even in the free version, and then they limit the amount of ideas they give you until you upgrade. But try out a few of them, see which ones you like, and then based on what your goals are, and then if you need to, go ahead and upgrade to the paid version. But usually the free versions can give you some really good information. So what do you do to get started? So this is just a little roadmap to try to give you some guidance on where to go next. First thing you should start with is, do you know your content strategy? When you are, if the answer is no, then you need to take a step back and think about who you're targeting. What are the personas of the people that you are targeting? Are they buyers? Are they authority figures? Are they resources? Whatever they are, whoever you're targeting, make sure that you're thinking about what kinds of content they'd like to consume. So if yours is a buyer trying to sell your product, you probably want to give a lot of content that's early in the buying funnel. So when you think about what stages a prospect goes through to buy your product, start targeting content along that early part of the buying funnel to the later stages of the buying funnel, so that you can even if what you're doing is creating something that your competitor might be on, you may want to go ahead and do that. Again, to be able to have a buying guide, you can't just have a buying guide with just your product on it. Nobody's going to read that. So you need to be a little bit more altruistic when thinking about your content strategy. Is your website ready for content? If the answer to that is no, make sure that you are doing the right thing from an architecture standpoint. One thing that will kill you is having URLs where it's page ID or page equals the page number. That tells Google nothing about the content on that page. So you need to have a good URL architecture for your website. The other thing you want to look at is making sure that you have unique H1 titles and HTML titles for every one of your pages. The more generic each one of those page titles are, the less it will get ranked in Google. So things along those lines. And then next, you want to think about, do you have a conversion strategy? So great, you have a piece of content that's driving a lot of traffic. What is on that page to entice the reader to take that next step with you? You're not creating content just out of the goodness of your heart. You want something to happen. It doesn't always have to be a big buy button. It might be a little bit more of a soft sell where you're asking them to sign up for your newsletter with a prominent call to action on that page. Or maybe what you're doing is asking them to download a white paper or get a free product sample or talk to one of your experts. Whatever that call to action is, make sure that that is on the pages that are getting the best traffic for you. Next slide. After you've done all of that, do you have writers that you can assign content to? I always recommend a hybrid strategy. It's very, very rare. You know, everybody always has the best intentions. All your subject matter experts internally in your organization are going to raise their hand and say, yes, I can write. And you're going to get, your marketing team's going to be all excited, they can write. But at the end of the day, if you don't have paid freelancers to help you augment your content, then it's not going to happen. I'm going to be totally blunt. It's just not going to happen. So you really need a mix of your own team and somebody from the outside who's paid to write content for you, or at least help get your subject matter experts started, because none of them really like starting with a blank piece of paper. So if you can get them started with interview questions that you preceded, or background information, or an article, or something, have your freelancer do at least that background piece, then you can go ahead and the subject matter experts are more likely to help you contribute content. So, but I always recommend some blogging from outside as well. Do you know how you can use social media? I don't recommend opening up every social media channel under the sun right away. Pick one, maybe start with 0, but pick one as, to start with, and then just do a really good job at that, and then grow it later on. Do you have the patience to wait for ROI? Okay, so it does take time. It is not an overnight process. If it was an overnight process, I think Google would be a little bit more inundated than they are now. So make sure you start with augmenting your organic search strategy with outbound marketing techniques. You need to augment it. So start with a newsletter. Newsletters are great to help you. Not only is it the vehicle to help promote original content that you create, but it's also a good way of capturing leads. So start with an e-newsletter. That's going to give you, it will help grow. The two strategies, e-newsletters and content creation, go hand in hand. Next slide. So we at FuzeHub have a lot of expertise in a multitude of different things. We're more than happy to get on a call with you so you can pick our brain a little bit and ask some specific questions Another option is we could do a more in-depth assessment where we will analyze your website, your content, your goals, and then recommend some directions you can take. We also have a ton of relationships with outsourced services. So if you're looking for something specific, we can definitely recommend people that we trust and we've used in the past. So feel free to ask us about any one of those things. And then lastly, we're just going to wrap up with the last, just to wrap up with what those recommendations are. Make sure you identify and document your strategy. Have ownership. Somebody in your company has to own this, and then somebody else higher up than that person has to make them accountable. So place ownership and accountability somewhere. So you can't do this without two of the methodologies because of the fact that this is an art and a science all blended together, and you need tools and methods to help make that work. And then just make sure that you're incorporating a solid mix of curation, which means that you're kind of going out there, you're not writing original content, but you're establishing authority by recommending and curating content that's out there already, that's good content. A little bit of social media to start and then pump that up over time. And then topical and cornerstone pieces. Topical means that they're timely. There's something happening in the news or in the environment today. Cornerstone or evergreen pieces mean that they stand the test of time, so that they are around topics that you know will be relevant this year, next year, the year after, that type of thing. And that's about it. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. If you go to www.fuzehub.com and request an expert consultation, we'll definitely get back to you about your questions. Thank you very much for listening today.